Hey there, Lion families. It's Miss Hillary again, here to read you another story about Passover. Now, yesterday we read a book about Sammy Spider, and in the book, he watched the Shapiro family observing all sorts of Passover traditions. They had a special plate with all of these special foods on it. They sang certain songs and asked a lot of questions. Now, in order to understand anything about the traditions that they were doing, first we need to understand the story of Passover. Now, kids at home, we recently learned about another story for the Jewish holiday of Purim. And I know you'll be showing your connection fingers as we go through this story. And certain characters in the Passover story might remind you of certain characters from the Purim story. Now, in the Purim story, as you'll remember, we had a villain who did some very not nice things and tried to hurt the Jewish people. And as we say in the Lion class, had some serious bucket dipping behaviors. But in the end, the Jewish people were strong and brave, and God was on our side, and we were okay in the end, and no one was able to hurt us. Now in this story, we have a Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, and you're going to see a lot of connections between Pharaoh and Haman. But I want you kids to know that this story turned out okay. That just as we know that we're all here today and the Jewish people are thriving, they were able to overcome any of the scary things that were thrown at them in this time when they were slaves in the land of Egypt. Now, this story comes from the holy book of the Jewish people, from the Torah. And is thousands of years old. So get ready. We're going to read about the story of Passover. The Story of Passover by David A. Adler, illustrated by Jill Weber. The story of Passover begins more than 3,000 years ago, when Jacob and his family settled in Egypt. Jacob was called Israel, and his family were called the children of Israel. They were also called Hebrews because of the language they spoke. Many years passed. Jacob and his children had all died. To the Pharaoh, the ruler of Egypt, the children of Israel were outsiders. He was afraid that one day they would rebel. To control them, he made them into slaves. He forced them to do hard work, and they were beaten, and some were killed. The wise men of Egypt told Pharaoh that one day a Hebrew boy would be born who would lead his people against Egypt. They couldn't tell him which boy it would be. So the Pharaoh decreed that every newborn Hebrew boy must be thrown into the river and drowned. One boy was saved. At first, his mother hid him. Then, when he grew too big to hide, she placed him in a small basket, and she put the basket into a river. The baby sister, Miriam, hid nearby to see what would happen. An Egyptian princess, the Pharaoh's daughter, found the baby. She named him Moses and planned to raise him as her own child. Miriam ran to her. "Should I get you someone to help with the baby?" "Yes," the princess said. Miriam brought the baby's mother to work in the palace. Moses was adopted by the princess, but he knew he was one of the children of Israel. When he was a young man, he saw an Egyptian beat a slave, which again, kiddos, is not very nice. Moses attacked the Egyptian and killed him. He felt so bad that he ran away. Moses settled far away from Egypt. He married and worked as a shepherd. One day, while Moses was watching his sheep, he saw a burning bush. There were flames, but the bush wasn't burnt. It wasn't harmed. Moses, Moses, a voice called from the bush. Yes, here I am. God spoke to Moses from the burning bush. He told Moses to lead the children of Israel out of Egypt. Moses and his older brother, Aaron, went to the Pharaoh. They asked him to let the children of Israel go free. What do you think the Pharaoh said? Well, the Pharaoh refused. He forced the children of Israel to work even harder. Moses and Aaron warned him that if he didn't let the Hebrews go, the waters of Egypt would turn to blood. The Pharaoh refused, and the waters turned to blood. That was the first plague to strike Egypt. There were 10. Count with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 plagues of Egypt. Frogs covered the land. A thick cloud of lice swarmed over Egypt. Animals ran wild. The Egyptian cattle became terribly sick and died. Painful boils broke out on the skin of the Egyptians, and huge hailstones mixed with fire fell on the land. A swarm of locusts attacked Egypt. It was dark as night in the middle of the day. Then came the 10th plague. One by one, the first newborn Egyptian sons died. The angel of death only visited the homes of the Egyptians, and he passed over the homes of the children of Israel. The Pharaoh was frightened. He was a firstborn son. He called for Moses and Aaron. "Leave now," he told them. "Go quickly before we all die." The children of Israel left that very night. The next day, the Pharaoh had a change of heart. He and his army chased after the former slaves. The Pharaoh's soldiers had horses, and their chariots were getting closer and closer to the children of Israel. The Red Sea was in front of them, and the soldiers were behind them. They seemed trapped. I want to take this moment to stop and talk a little bit about what's going on in this story. Now, ordinarily in class, I know you kiddos would have a lot of questions, comments, and connections, and we'd be able to go through them. But unfortunately, with these videos, you can see me, but I can't see what you're doing when you're watching them. So I'm going to take this time and hopefully answer some of the things that you're thinking about. So the Jewish people were slaves in Egypt, and Moses came and said, "Let my people go." Pharaoh wouldn't listen, even though it was the right thing to do. He knew it was wrong to have slaves, and he needed to let them go, but he wouldn't. So bad things kept happening to the Pharaoh and his people, until finally they got so bad that he said, "Wow, God must be really powerful. If I don't do the right thing, we could all be in a lot of trouble. So I'm going to let them go." Now the Jewish people were so happy. They were so excited to finally be able to live free and happy and build their own lives. But then the Pharaoh changed his mind. he decided he didn't want to let them go, and he started chasing the Hebrews, the ancient Israelites, towards the sea. Now, can you imagine being trapped between water and somebody chasing you? That might be really scary, and they didn't feel like they had anywhere to go. But you're going to see that everything turned out okay. Because God told Moses to lift his stick and to spread his hands over the sea. Moses did, and the sea divided. The children of Israel walked through the sea on dry land. They were able to walk to safety. The Pharaoh's army followed them. Then, when the soldiers were in the midst of the sea, Moses raised his stick again. The waters flooded together. The Egyptians drowned, and the children of Israel were free. On Passover, Jewish people all over the world celebrate their freedom from slavery and their beginnings as a great nation. So that's what we are celebrating on Passover. We're celebrating being free. We're celebrating the fact that we are able to live as Jewish people wherever we want and that no one can make us slaves. We're celebrating the fact that we are able to be with our families and to love each other. Now, parents, if you're watching with your Lion kiddos, you might see that they have a lot of questions about this story. I really encourage you to talk about it. At school, we would be talking about how a lot of things that happened in this story were scary. But the Hebrews had each other, and they had God. And with God, they were able to get through it. Now, there might be some scary things happening in our own lives right now, but we have each other, and we have God, and together we can get through it. And even though we can't physically be together, we are all here for each other. We are all doing this work together of being here for ourselves, and loving one another, even through videos and phone calls and whatever way we can. Now, I hope you're having a wonderful day at home. And Lions, I encourage you to find one way today that you can fill your own bucket and one way that you can fill the bucket of someone else in your home. Can you help your mom and dad or sister or brother feel good today? Can you do something that's just for you to help you feel good today? I'll see you later, Lions. Feel free to ask your parents to send me a message, a text, or an email with any questions that you have, or we can video call if you want to talk to me. Bye, Lions.